Welcome to day 2 of the Rocket and Raygun Awards. I am your host, Victor Lucas, and my co-host today is our old friend, the lovely and talented Behr Safi, who is here. Thank you, sir, for joining us. It's always a big treat to see your beautiful face. Hope you're doing well.
It is such an honor to be here. I'm so excited. Obviously, this has been a rough year for all of us, but
yes,
games really got us through this year, and I cannot wait to discuss some of my favorites from PlayStation, sports, RPG, some very important subjects here to talk about. But I'm so honored to be here, Vic.
Thank you,
sir. It's
such
a pleasure with you and the EP family.
It is a family. We have the best chat on the internet, TM. And if you are new, if you are just joining us, we have lots of guests that are going to appear throughout the program. And I've noticed that some of them are retweeting. It's kind of a really cool celebration now. We've got a lot of faces that people know from the video game universe. They're all in the show. But it's all week long. That's what we're doing with the Rocket and Rayguns. We didn't want to do a 5-hour show. We wanted to do an hour a day, keep it reasonable, and we'd take a look at different topics every day, different award categories. Today we are taking a look at the best PlayStation game, the best role-playing game, and the best sports game. So we're going to have lots of interesting conversations, maybe get into a little bit of the controversy that's out there about some of these specific titles. You might be able to guess them. And we're going to be hearing some gaming memories from different people, some of the people that are actually in the chat right now. So it's wonderful to see everybody. I see Adrian Leon, I see Goku and JBJ Blaze and Mr. Mass Produce and Camille Mazur and Nintendo Boy and lots of awesome folks. So we're going to get into taking a look at a little bit of everything and talking a little bit after the nominations are kind of run through, and then we're going to pick our winner. And I am really looking forward to having these conversations with you. Let's get started with our very first category. This is for Best Sports Game. NBA 2K21 Next Gen. Developed by Visual Concepts, published by 2K Sports. NHL 21, developed by EA Vancouver, published by EA Sports. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, developed by Vicarious Visions and Beenox, published by Activision. FIFA 21 Next Level Edition, developed by EA Vancouver and EA Romania, published by EA Sports. MLB The Show 20, developed by Sony San Diego and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. I noticed somebody said NHL 94 Remake should have been in that nomination pack there. That was Delta Charlie. That was pretty phenomenal, NHL 94 Remake. But alas, it's included if you have NHL 21, which was a lot of fun. Big, heavy hitters, kind of predictable choices, I would say, right?
Some big hitters, Vic. I'm going to call you out a little bit for not having enough love for sports games in there, though. Or sorry, sports racing games, I should say, because I'm a big sim guy. I play a lot of Assetto Corsa. I love Dirt 5, but I play a lot of Formula 1 2020. And maybe I would have thrown that in that mix, but that was a strong list.
Yeah, well, I would say Dirt 5 is my favorite racing game of the year. It was pretty thin for racing, and it was pretty thin for fighting games, like Mortal Kombat 11. The Ultimate Edition is the best fighting game of this year, and so I didn't want to put a lot of extra effort into creating whole categories for specific titles that we all know are in that list. But I think what's interesting with the sports games is that they've now crossed over into next gen, and definitely what EA did with FIFA and with Madden, for that matter, allowing people to buy it on previous gen and then upgrading for free to next gen. Pretty cool. I had a good time with Madden.
On. I don't know what's happening. This 2020 is such a crazy year. Why? How is EA being the good guys and CD Projekt Red is being the I don't know what's happening in 2020, but EA is impressing me with actually a lot of decisions. I mean, they're bringing Mass Effect back.
Yes,
and a lot of things going on.
Well, that's what I always say about EA. They're such a mega company, and they've contributed so many wonderful game experiences to our lives. But every company takes a misstep, including our beloved CD Projekt Red, and we're so quick to throw these corporations under the bus and just assume all sorts of blame and throw all kinds of hate at them. But we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. But with regards to these sports games, an appreciable benefit in both Madden and FIFA. I think FIFA makes all the money though, right? So you can really see the visual gloss and the sort of target renders and the beauty of where soccer games are going to go now. It's staggering. I mean, it's like you're watching an animated Pixar soccer movie, before.
Absolutely.
And in real time, too. So, like, the camera will cut as your player is, like, running off the field and cheer. It's just incredible.
It's crazy how spoiled we're getting right now with frame rates. We're talking, like, 4K at 120 frames a second. It's great. It's absolutely, it's crazy. Just seeing some of those comparison videos, even for NBA 2K21.
Yes.
Just how much better the games look. Like the faces were just so much more lifelike.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible to think.
And Hoops is all about the personalities, right?
Yeah.
Like you can go right back into the legacy teams in NBA 2K21, which is what I do. I always play Jordan from the 80s and the 90s against Detroit or whatever. And I love it. And it just looks incredible. And you can see the anger and the passion and the joy in the players' faces. They did a phenomenal job. And yes, you have to buy that game twice because it was excellent last gen. Which was 2 months before the next gen came out. But it's great in both, but it's another level fully when you get into the next gen space. Disappointed that NHL didn't get a next gen update because I really had a blast playing NHL 21. I'm still playing it. I had a phenomenal time playing it on a stream, and people watched me play like a full game, and it was a nail biter. And I think they've done an incredible job just kind of topping it off and finishing this gen. But yeah, it's severely missed as a next gen candidate, but it was still crazy fun. Even though I know the lifers out there, the people that are really hardcore about sports, I always notice they have the most to complain about with each one of these yearly iterations.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of we could talk about the microtransactions,
yes,
and how aggressive all that is. But I love that you brought that up about the NHL series, because I feel like, for how phenomenal those games are, they always get the short end of the stick as far as features and career mode. And I think you nailed it there when you said something like FIFA really is it just targets the whole world as an audience, whereas probably a game like NHL is more Europe and maybe North America focused as far as the audience that buys it. But it's exactly. It's a little heartbreaking to know that, we still haven't, I still don't think we've had a fantastic, career mode in an NHL game.
No, they did a much better job this year, but yes, they could have taken it up another level to compare.
Still not
with
at
Madden.
the level that we expect.
They don't make the dough, right? So you can kind of understand that. MLB has been a serious contender in this category every single year. Sony San Diego is so good at their job. I mean, it's really comparative between Visual Concepts and Sony San Diego. They clearly love that they get to play in these different sports, and they're so fetishistic with all of the details. But what's interesting is this was going to be the last PlayStation exclusive MLB game from Sony. Next year it will be on the other machines in next gen, which I can't wait to see what that means. Let these developers go crazy.
I think that's a good thing. I think the more people that get to experience these games, I think the more hands that they're in. I feel like we're kind of out of that phase where things should be console exclusive, and sometimes I really do like the way Microsoft opens up, where their games go and how they've honored a lot of those, how they're even honoring the fact that Bethesda games are going to come on to Sony consoles because they were promised on them. I don't know if Sony would have reciprocated that, to be honest with you, with how aggressive Sony is with some of their exclusive deals. So
it's the gates that really piss everybody off, right? It's all the lack of things that your neighbor has on their thing. It's really nuts. But our winner, as you can probably guess, is going to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. And I think what that really states is that there is a massive sort of missing component out there in the action sports category, the arcade sports category. All of these games would benefit from like all of the other traditional sports games would benefit from arcade sports counterparts, where it went larger than life. NHL, I think, is the closest just because of the nature of the sport itself. It just feels kind of futuristic and impossible.
I feel like we've had this conversation 100 times.
Totally.
Where's the Street series? Where's, where is the NBA Jam series?
Yes.
The closest thing this year, I just want to give a quick shout out to, is Andy Hall's Dunk Lords, which came out, which was an early access, but officially came out.
Yeah.
That was probably the sports game I played the most this year because
fantastic game.
It was just so addictive. It gave me that NBA Jam fix that I needed.
Totally.
But you're absolutely right. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, going back 15 years was the best thing that happened to that franchise. It really showed us that you don't need to fix what's not broken.
Right.
We are still eagerly awaiting a great Tony Hawk game, and
a new one.
It's a new one. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 was a complete mess. A lot of what they tried, I feel like in the last 10 years, kind of been a mess, to be honest. And I feel like this remaster was taken care of with such care and such fidelity and such love.
Yes.
That
just the effort to go and get the soundtrack.
Yes.
Like to hear No Cigar coming out of my 2020 sound system. And I like instant joy, instant smile on the face. It's such a cool thing to pass the controller to my kid and let her create her character and skate around. And, it's about, quick play, like jumping in and having a really fun time really quickly. So concentrated enjoyment, but you can also just keep going back and replaying and playing and playing again. There's so much value in that freaking game. And just like the originals, which I've installed on the Polymega, by the way, so I can play the PlayStation games anytime I want to. It's this is a game that underlines play forever, right?
Absolutely.
Like this is a game where you are going to play this freaking thing forever. And what I love about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, it's one of the best games of the year for sure, but it's a game to share. It's a game to say, especially for us cross-generational gamers that were there the first time around, it's like, this is what it was like. This is what the design was like, and this was creators, experimenting with 3D design and speed and skill-based gameplay. That was just filled with reward. And
I truly believe good design is eternal, Vic. Like it will last. The fact that I was able to show this franchise even to my girlfriend who never played the original Tony Hawk's. Like to me, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 was probably game of the year that year. It was a 10 out of 10 game.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that
I cut in some of our review that Tommy and I did back when it first came out. And yes, we were saying, I think I said it was the best PlayStation game ever made, like better than Metal Gear. And I mean, it was so amazing. It like got in your bloodstream. You couldn't stop playing the freaking thing.
So good. I mean, it had Spider-Man in there, and then you unlocked videos of Spider-Man. It was just,
that's what I missed. No crazy. Spider-Man.
I know.
It would have been an 11 out of 10 if Spider-Man was in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Oh man,
he had an amazing game. And I think you're probably going to notice that, other people throughout the week may have similar feelings about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. But what I did is I reached out to friends across the community, reached out to people that watch our channel here, and we got some great memories about 2020 in games. Let's take a look.
I'm Ryan McCaffrey from IGN, and for me, a positive memory from a game in 2020, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's a game originally from 2007, but re-released in 2020, and that would be Super Mario Galaxy on the back of Super Mario 3D All-Stars. I got to play this with my daughter, who's now 9, and it's her first time playing it, obviously, and I went from me playing and her watching to her not wanting to put the controller down. She loves it, and that just totally warms my heart to see.
For me, the best VR game, at least, of this year was Star Wars Squadrons. I've been playing the hell out of it, and it's amazing. The multiplayer dogfights are great. I love all the little cameos, Admiral Akbar and Wedge and characters like that. Being an old school Star Wars trilogy fanboy, of course, this is something I've been fantasizing about for a long, long time, being in an actual X-Wing or TIE Fighter, etc. And, it doesn't get any better than that. So that's it. That's my pick. I've been playing a lot of other games, but that's the main one that's been allowing me to escape this awesome year. So anyway, I hope everyone's doing well, and happy holidays to you, Vic, and to everyone. Peace.
My favorite gaming moment of 2020 was definitely the rooftop scene from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I've never actually even played the original Final Fantasy VII. I have dabbled in Final Fantasies, but that was the moment that game really clicked for me, and it kind of really made me understand why people love 7 so much and why they have such a reverence for it. And I think for me, it just came out at a very perfect time because the world was kind of going on lockdown. There was a lot of chaos, and then you kind of have this moment, and I was playing the game, and similarly in the game there's a lot of chaos going on and a lot of things happening, and then you have this moment of respite, and it's backed up by this beautiful characterization, fantastic acting, as well as just some incredible music. And honestly, I remember playing that scene for the first time and just pausing, and I really needed that at the time, and that's why the rooftop scene has always stuck with me.
We got a note from Trevor Cooper, who said, "My favorite moment in games this terrible and long year was playing through The Last of Us Part 2 with my significant other. It may not have been the most cheerful game, but it set a new benchmark for interactive fiction. This game completely enthralled us both from start to finish. It also shed light on a number of content creators who seemed to have a mindset that didn't jive with the message of the game. I unsubscribed from many people because of this, and channels like EPN are one in a million."
Hey, it's Jeff Canada from the DLC video game podcast at 5x5.tv/DLC, and I wanted to share an incredible moment that I had this year playing a video game. Maybe you've already seen my game of the year, but spoiler alert, it's Half-Life Alyx. And my name is Jeff Canada, as I said, that's spelled Jeff. And there's a moment in Half-Life Alyx, an entire chapter entitled Jeff. I won't give away what it is if anybody out there hasn't played it. But I will tell you that when I was playing it in the headset, in VR, completely immersed in that world, my heart racing, doing incredible things, and all of a sudden up on the screen, everything fades to black and the word Jeff came up on the screen as the title of the next chapter. I must admit, I thought for a moment the game had gone completely next level and was somehow mining my username or my real name to somehow personalize the game just for me. And it was an incredible moment. Then I actually played the level entitled Jeff, and that blew my mind in a completely new way. So one of my most memorable moments from 2020 is when I thought a video game was talking directly to me.
So great to see Jeff Canada. Man, I love that guy. His story is just awesome, and he's such a huge, champion for VR. He's such an evangelist for VR gaming, and certainly Half-Life Alyx was one of the most exceptional experiences of the year. Loved hearing from Ryan McCaffrey. Got me right here when he was talking about his daughter. And I've never met Lucy from GameSpot before, but I reached out and she got back to me right away with a video, and she's so cool and so nice. But I got a lot of that this week, and I feel like we tapped into something here where we got people to kind of connect around this stuff, and it was important, And
you absolutely did. You
got some great
did,
stories, man.
I can't lie to you. I got a little bit emotional watching that. I don't know if it was the music or the fact that just bringing everyone together and having the same love and interest in a hobby that brings us all together in a year where we've been so apart. It was kind of definitely gave me the goosebumps watching that.
Oh, sweet.
And all the different your editing's getting better, Vic. Damn it. I don't know what's going on.
Oh my God, I've been editing a hell of a lot this year. Oh my God. But yes, thank you to everybody that has contributed. You can't submit now. I've got all of the pieces that I can deal with. But it turned into a successful exercise, and we were doing a little bit of that with some of our features and things. I'm going to let you guys in on something. I wanted to create a feature series about game developers that we miss. And the first one that I thought of was Pandemic. And we reached out to the folks from Pandemic, and we got video content from them. And we've got the content to be able to put a nice feature together. But I cannot bring myself to put a video out there about a studio called Pandemic. And I feel so guilty because I've been sitting on this great footage. But I love this kind of, opening up and letting people kind of filter in with some of their thoughts and stuff, and going right back to the roots of Electric Playground. Like even when we launched our website in 1995, We were reaching out to the community. We used to do Christmas wish lists from game developers and other journalists and stuff, and they would write us big lists, and we would post them on the website. I mean, that's what I built this freaking brand about. It's to bring people together, man.
It's not only about, you know, the games that we play. It's about the people behind them, right?
Yes.
I mean, you've said that best, and that also means you guys in the chat. It's, you know, the games, like you are part of where the game industry goes as well, right? So it's very important, I think, to show those faces and to show the importance of this hobby and this piece of art form that we love. Because
absolutely, you get it, Behr.
I do get it.
You're such an old soul, man. Like you're like, you know, you're about 18 years old, and you're just such a smart, savvy dude.
Solid 18. Well, I love that number. Let's stay at 18.
Well, I'm scaling back years, so it puts me around 35. Okay, so we're good.
Yeah, that's true.
But
listen, Vic, I got emotional too when I saw, you know, I never told you this, but when I saw you showing, you know, Ruby how to do something in Zelda, it was kind of like just seeing the passing of a torch.
Oh yeah,
and it really shows me what's most important about this. This art form. So just small things like that go.
Oh man, and, you know, and honestly, like people. Well, we're going to get into this right now because we're going to talk about CD Projekt Red. Our next category is the best RPG of the year, and people like to, I say this all the time, people like to get super up in arms and super negative and super passionate. And the passion's great, but the anger and the fire is just not really helpful. You know, this is a clumsy medium where people are still figuring things out and still trying to understand how to kind of define what this entertainment is. And it's just filled with so many incredible people. And, you know, I've grown up with them. You know, I've grown up with so many people in the video game industry, and they move from project to project, but we connect and we stay in touch and we have them on the show all the time. And it's I guess that's the thing, right? Like I'm in that position, like I know the people more, you know, it's not just
you've seen the evolution, I think, Vic, more than anyone has, right? Like I always bring up, you were the first person with a camera and a microphone running around the first E3.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to see that, and you probably have seen these people you grew up with having kids and developing as people.
I feel like I've gone to school with, you know, so many people in the video game industry. Okay, well, we're going to get into our RPG picks in a second here, but here are the nominees. Final Fantasy VII Remake, developed and published by Square Enix, directed by Tetsuya Nomura, Naoki Hamaguchi, and Motomu Toriyama. Cyberpunk 2077, developed and published by CD Projekt Red, game directed by Adam Badowski. Yakuza Like a Dragon, developed by Ryu Ga Gotoku Studio, published by Sega, and directed by Ryosuke Hori. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, developed by Ubisoft Montreal, published by Ubisoft, directed by Ashraf Ismail and Eric Baptizat. Demon's Souls, developed by Bluepoint Games, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and directed by Gavin Moore after original direction by Hidetaka Miyazaki. So, some interesting stories with all of those role-playing experiences. Demon's Souls, we had a kind of an idea that it was going to be something special when the first footage was shown off. And are you a big Souls player? Are you somebody that can suffer the punishment?
This is a great question, Vic, because this quarantine maybe I've just been upset and depressed, so I'm trying to torture myself, but I've actually got into the Souls series. I just beat Bloodborne, just started Dark Souls Remastered, so my journey really started during this crazy year, and
That's awesome.
Absolutely loved it. I've not tried Demon's Souls yet, but Bloodborne was, let's just say I could see why people rave about
obsessed,
that game
yes.
so much. Yeah, because it's...
I feel that great. Every time I attempt one of these things, like Sekiro and Bloodborne, I get to a point where it's just like, okay, game, you got me. Okay, you win, game. And I'm kind of at that point with Demon's Souls, but I certainly can appreciate the masterful quality of this experience. And I don't know if there's been a game this year that has gotten me so angry and animated and joyous when I mean, it just puts so much pressure on you to be good.
Yeah.
You feel like a total champion if you get past stuff, you know.
But that feeling is something that not a lot of games give you, right? I always talk about how fighting games give you a distinct feeling, that a victory and an improvement, and you know the Souls games, the Soulsborne series is similar to that. Is kind of overcoming yourself and overcoming a barrier, and it kind of goes back to the archaic design of like the Mega Man series, right? The Mega Man series, the first time you try them, you're kind of like, I don't know what route to take. I'm going to fail here, but you fail enough that you start to figure out the right routes, the right strategies. Yep. And it's that gameplay loop that, you know, by the time you're 30 hours in, you're just going to be able to clear through it in one playthrough.
That's wonderful.
Seeing people beat Bloodborne in like 35 minutes has been the craziest mind-blowing thing to me. But it's
with a Guitar Hero guitar, which is it's like F you. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you know, that Assassin's Creed franchise has been on the action adventure category year after year after. But I just went full. It's an RPG at this point. It's bloated. It's too long. It's loaded with too many things to do. But it's also stunning, and it's so evocative and just a gorgeous escape. You know, it's just done with such talent. And it just is it's just a real immersion, and I love it. You know, it's an absolutely stunning game.
There's a lot of love and history and just care that gets, you know, I would love to just get a peek into the pre-production for those games of just finding out the history and embellishing that into like an open moving world.
Well, if you ever want to, they all have different art directors, but the art director on Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a guy named Raphael Lacoste. And he was on the first Prince of Persia Sands of Time game. And he's an incredible visionary. He's a person that really, even back in the PlayStation 2 era, understood that if you put the research in and you try to kind of... I remember interviewing him, and he said that we didn't base Prince of Persia on what we can, you know, go to the library or go to Google and look at that kind of culture. We went to English Impressionist paintings of the 19th century and their aesthetic and their take, and we borrowed that as source for how we interpreted. And it was like...
It's incredible. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vic. I know that I think it was Assassin's Creed Origin a few years back that they were actually using it for educational material. Some of the footage and some of the that's incredible. That just goes to show how much love and care that goes into these games. I would love, because I think Origin is still probably my favorite one this generation.
It's an awesome game, yeah.
I would love for them to take more breaks between games, because I feel like Origin was the first time I think that there was kind of a few year gap.
Honestly, really the franchise is so big and bloated, and there's too much in each one of these games, and that becomes the complaint, which is, you know, I know a lot of people they buy that and that's it, you know, but most people don't. They have a lot of other things, and they're balancing time, and they never finish. And I think you're absolutely right. I think Assassin's Creed at this point should be Ubisoft's Zelda, and they should go one per generation, you know, one every 5 years.
Exactly. One for every 5. We should be celebrating when an Assassin's Creed game comes out.
Totally.
But we don't. You know, when an Assassin's Creed comes out, we're like, okay, well, it's Assassin's Creed of the year.
I mean, they turned it into like Madden for that was stupid. You know, too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Good thing.
And now they've gone to 2 years, which is much better. But I think they should just go the whole way. You know, and I know that doesn't keep the suits happy and the banks happy, but they get enough things now. You know,
you get burnt out.
You get burnt out. And then we talked about Yakuza. Well, we had Yakuza Like a Dragon in there. I don't know if you've checked out this incredibly crazy game.
Vic, I started the Yakuza series, I want to say 1.5 to 2 years ago now. And it was one of the best decisions that I've made.
They're awesome
getting
games.
into it. They are incredible. If any of you guys are looking to get lost in a crazy Japanese Yakuza-filled world,
but
with
Like a Dragon is so different, though. It's a party-based role-playing game, and I didn't know what the hell I was in for. And it's so, you know, they always have a sense of humor, but this is over the top. They took
the craziness of the original Yakuza franchise. I mean, this is technically Yakuza 7. In Japan, it is titled Yakuza 7. And they ramped it up times 10.
Oh,
like
it's
they
crazy.
just embraced the craziness. I do want to give a big shout out to the localization team in that. I do
Yes.
always play the games in Japanese. I think that's probably is the only option, but they gave it the localization team really put a lot of work into this version.
Totally.
And really kind of translated the jokes and the lore. And it's incredible, man. It's if you're not one to want to like read subtitles and get into all that, I would totally try the localized version, because
it's a wonderful game, and it's I mean, it has really tight, super fun JRPG style combat and gameplay. Lots of characters, memorable experiences. At one point, after I had gotten out of prison for being in there for a crime I did not commit, after 18 years in prison, I had nothing, and I had to go and collect bottles, I think, basically.
You're going to do everything in that game. You will clean toilets. You will find people selling black market.
It's crazy.
Items.
But I love it. It's a great game. And I've also been loving Cyberpunk 2077, the black stain on the video game industry in 2020. You're 40 hours into this game. And I asked you before we started rolling today if you feel like it should be a nominee for Best RPG. And the reason why I put it in there is because this is the freshest of the experiences to go into this category this year. You know, and the noticeable exception that isn't included here is Persona 5 Royal, but that felt a little like we just did Persona 5.
Yeah,
you know?
it's more of an expansion to,
yeah.
you know,
and it's the best RPG of the year if you haven't played Persona 5. But Cyberpunk, I felt like was, obviously a massive endeavor. And I think that it is, at its core, a successful, immersive, wonderful bit of fiction and storytelling and game mechanics that is filled with all kinds of broken stuff.
Vic, I've got my Keanu Reeves right here. Right?
Oh, there he is.
This beautiful Keanu right here to
I
show
love
you
it.
how much. You know, I know
breathtaking, buddy.
It's the breathtaking photo. That's how I feel like coming to the studio every day. I know it's the cool thing to do right now to kind of hate and crap all over Cyberpunk and the launch. But
I think it's more the execs at CD Projekt Red. I think.
Yeah, but you know what? There's clearly been designers who are getting death threats right now that is taking it way too far. And I do want to say I'm loving my experience with it.
Yeah.
Was it a game that was ready? No. Should it have been released on previous gen consoles? No. I think Cyberpunk and the CD Projekt Red team should have really put their foot down and been like, hey, we can't optimize this game for PS4 machines.
Right.
They would have gotten a lot of backlash for that because the game's been 7-8 years in development.
You know what they should have done?
It would have been less backlash than they're getting now.
They should have said, no, it's not going to be out on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, but you can play it on your iPhone. that would have gone over so well.
But it's the game that I've always dreamed of playing, as you know, since I've seen Blade Runner as a kid. You know,
yes.
I'm lost in it, but there's so many bugs and so many crashes that take me out of it, where I almost envy someone who's going to play this game in 2 years.
I know,
because as soon as I get lost in it, I see a weird glitch or a floating model somewhere, or you know, something's just kind of just frozen in place because it's trying
There's
to
a lot of weird audio little bits, and there is a lot of characters really kind of pushing how edgy they are all over the place. There's a lot of like in your face lore, you know, and also a lot of subtlety on stuff that you can interact with, so you can whip past things and not know that you needed to do that. But I like that there's so many layers. I love that there's so many paths and so many different things that you can do. And
the size of the world is more quality over quantity, which is like really nice. Like you can go up the stairs in certain places, but the game is just not ready, and it breaks my heart.
It's like 3 months.
That we're even having this discussion, and it's not RPG game of the year.
Well, and honestly, that was one of the things that I was very happy about being a little bit later with the Rocket and Raygun Awards this year. I was going to meet that release date of Cyberpunk. I think everybody expected this thing to be the best of this year, you know, if not the best, vying for that title. But I don't think it is, but I do think that it is a worthy candidate for best role-playing game, but the best advice I think that I can give you, and I think you share in this, is don't buy it yet. Wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait for the patches.
And Evil Ones is a good thing too. Like the story is great so far. I'm loving kind of the pacing through it, and I'm getting, I'm falling in love with a lot of characters, including some of the romantic interests in the game right now. Like you really get lost in it.
It's Johnny Silverhand. Are you falling in love with?
Yeah,
you have.
I wish.
Yeah.
That was, as you can see, that's my real life crush. But so, it hurts. It hurts me, Vic, that I have to even come out and say that it's just not a complete experience right now. And I feel like we're gonna get there. And I almost envy in 10 years from now, when there's a VR version of this game, how lost someone could get into this world, and how. Anyways, I'm.
Still,
it hurts.
It does hurt, and it definitely leaves room for Rockstar to make a cyber. Blade Runner-esque Grand Theft Auto that's set in the future. Because this isn't that, right? It's a different type of thing. Anyways, our winner for Best Role-Playing Game of the Year, as you could probably ascertain, is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And this was also kind of controversial because it didn't adhere closely to what Square Enix had kind of provided with the original Final Fantasy VII, which I have to be honest, I played it back then and it didn't rock my world. I certainly appreciated the beauty of the 3D design back then, but I was a much bigger fan of the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy III. And I'm not an expert on any of them. Like, I've played a lot of them, but there's a lot of them that blur. But 7 Remake is stunning. It's a gorgeous game, and it's filled with beautiful production, great voice work, lots of really, exquisite action sequences, characters that you really do care about, lots of twists and turns in the storytelling. It's a beautiful game.
I think it's the game that we've all, when first playing through Final Fantasy VII, and then many years later, Advent Children, the movie coming out.
Right.
I feel like this is the game we've been dreaming of. We just had to wait about 15 years for it after watching Advent Children.
Was that the one with Donald Sutherland in it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Did he voice someone in it? I totally forget.
Tommy went to the screening and the junket for that, and did the interviews with Ming-Na Wen and all the different people that are in that. I think it was that movie, which is crazy.
It wasn't the late 90s one, right?
I don't know. It must have been the. It was back then.
Yeah, you're thinking Spirits Within. You're thinking
Spirits Within, which was the Hawaii-based. Like the studio in Hawaii that made that movie, right? Yeah.
But after watching like Advent Children, like just the production quality, the love, the storytelling. Obviously, it's not the complete game yet. It's still not the beginning to end story of Final Fantasy VII, but they've added a lot of world building in there, and it was clear that the team that worked on this game was passionate about it, and they were just as passionate as the fans on making it good, and I can't wait to see where the rest of it goes, and truthfully, how the next gen machines are going to be. They're probably going to make a next gen version once the next part comes out as well. So
absolutely, and maybe they'll tie it all together, right? Maybe they'll have an enhanced version of one, and I mean, clearly, it's a whole new massive universe for them to kind of keep exploring, and it just felt like a treat. And there were also lots of parallels with the way that Vicarious Visions handled the Tony Hawk responsibility. Here were two 90s classics that were repped really well in 2020. But speaking of 2020, we have some more game memories to take a look at. Let's jump to that right now.
There were a lot of exciting and provocative moments in gaming in 2020, but for my favorite, I'm going painfully nostalgic. It's the opening to Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was already one of my favorite game openings of all time. They did it bigger, bolder, more bombastic. That pull-out from Midgar, when that music hits, that was just a pure bliss moment. I played that part louder than any game I think I've ever played. We're talking pictures rattling and shaking off the walls, but it drowned out everything else going on in this godforsaken year. And I didn't necessarily love every direction the Final Fantasy VII Remake took, but for that moment, it was just pure happiness, and that was my favorite for sure.
My name is Chester. I'm from the state of Georgia in the United States. And this is my great gaming memory, besides the fact that in 2003, I beat Halo for the first time for one of the loves of my life. But I digress. 2013, it's Christmas time. I lose my job. I'm on the edge of being evicted. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to sell my PS3. A friend of mine gives me a code for $10 on Microsoft Live. I use it to buy The Wolf Among Us Season 1 on Xbox 360. And basically it keeps me sane through that holiday. 2014, get my PS3 back, buy a PS4 because I had to return the one I pre-ordered in 2013, and I buy Dragon Age Inquisition when I really couldn't afford it. But again, I'm all alone on Christmas, can't go into my family because we're broke, and it saves my sanity. 2015, same thing, all alone on Christmas, Divinity Original Sin, console edition, saves my sanity. So that's why I love game devs. You guys have not probably saved my sanity, but saved my life. Thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
My favorite gaming moment of the year is going to be a weird one because it's just the video game industry as a whole. I work primarily in film and television, and I had to watch those industries kind of just shut down. But the gaming industry really soldiered on. Everyone was flexible and adapted really quickly. Whether you're on the game press side covering games, a game player just playing games, or game developers making games, everyone rallied together and made this year a lot easier to deal with. And there was something for everybody. There were family-friendly games like Animal Crossing. You could visit each other's cities. There was AAA experiences like Last of Us 2 and Cyberpunk, and a slew of great indie games. So I just want to give a shout out to the video game industry as a whole for helping just make this year a little bit more bearable.
My favorite gaming moment of 2020 has to be when the fine folks over at Martinpole gave a bunch of us PSVR content creators early access to their game Alvo. And myself and 9 other PSVR streamers got together and just had a wonderful time just killing each other like we were all teenagers again. It was just fantastic fun, and it allowed me to turn my reviewer brain off and just enjoy VR gaming for what it is. My second favorite moment has to be the wonderful masks I gave Mr. Victor Lucas. They didn't turn out as intended.
We're thinking about what the heck is that? That's creepy.
This is a mask that my friend the VR Grid sent to me. This is actually my face, but it's blown up a little bit.
Oh my god!
But still, we're pretty good for a laugh. So those are my 2 favorite gaming moments of 2020.
What the hell is wrong? Don't take that.
I remember being young and playing video games and having things happen that would blow my mind and make me go, how is this real? How is this possible? And I feel like we have gotten so many of those moments. I've gotten so many of these moments this year. And so many of them are taking me directly back to my childhood and really showing me how far video games have come. The 2 examples I have are Final Fantasy VII Remake and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake. 2 examples of 2020 games that have no right to be as successful as they are in taking everything I remember about loving these classic video games and somehow making them feel fresher than ever. There is a boss fight in Final Fantasy VII Remake early on, the Airbuster fight. It's a classic where the boss battle theme kicks in and it is fully orchestrated with the full choir, full live guitars, all this stuff. And as I am shifting between Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa, taking this boss down, I am immediately thrown back to being 8 years old, playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time, and just seeing it with my imagination, seeing through the polygons to something so much more. And we are now able to play what that game meant to me, what that game looked like in my head. The same thing with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. All of these memories, all the hundreds of hours of me just going over and over and over in a line in the warehouse, listening to Superman by Goldfinger, to see it and feel it and have that muscle memory come back. Being able to know exactly how to hit a combo in every single level right as we start. I love that I have grown with video games and video games have grown with me.
You know, it's a privilege to be able to do this, you know? And what's crazy about these videos is that a lot of these folks I would see throughout the year. So this has been, I've been doing lots of interviews and stuff throughout the year, but this is a kind of a cool way to kind of touch base and to have them in the show. You want one of the Victor Lucas masks, don't you?
Yeah. Let's not brush past the Victor Lucas mask that we all just saw. First question, why are those not being sold right now?
I have lots of them. VR Grid sent me a ton of them.
Send me one right now. Are you kidding me?
I haven't had the guts to be able to actually wear it in public. I don't want to scare children. It's so creepy.
It's beautiful. By the way, I want to say that Tim really nailed it there with just the fact that we got the two amazing remasters being Final Fantasy VII and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he talked about, picking up that controller for the first time and it feeling exactly the same with Tony Hawk 2.
So good.
We're definitely living in a very lucky time for games that we're able to experience these remasters that are literally 20 years later of the original product and still holding up and still capturing us the same way.
Yeah, it's
well
cool.
said.
It's like this rubber band inside of all of these releases. They're all present. And I was talking with Sean Hatton yesterday, who was the co-host on yesterday's show, and he plays a lot of retro stuff too, just like I've been. There's been room for all of us fans to kind of try a little bit of the whole breadth of what games have. And now we've got these remakes and these remasters and stuff too. But yeah, fantastic commentary. Thank you to Rocco and VR Grid and Chester. We went back and forth on getting your video in there, and I'm so glad that it was in there. I thought it was beautiful and from the heart and important because I don't think this year is just about like celebrating everything as if it's normal and aren't we lucky and I think Chester nailed it. Like, games have saved us, and it's like that's front and center this year. Like, they've been such an important escape, such a lifeline, whether you're socializing or just trying to get away,
I have so many friends, Vic, that are not into games. They don't even understand the medium. They don't they haven't gotten into it. And I almost feel sorry for them. The fact that, during this year, they didn't have these escapes.
They've watched everything on Netflix.
Yes, they've just watched everything on Disney and Netflix and Amazon Prime. But I never looked at games in the past as something to escape to. A lot of people have, they always like to use it as a form of escape.
Yeah.
This year, I feel like I absolutely now understand why people use games as an escape, because I use them as an escape and I wanted to get invested in a world that was different than the one that we're living in. And it really got me through this year. I absolutely got into so many experiences that made me forget for a couple hours that, we're not living in a crazy pandemic and a crazy time right now. And
interesting that you say that. Yeah. Let's go to our and we'll pick up on that in a second here. But first, let's go to our nominees for Best PlayStation Game of 2020. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, developed by Insomniac Games, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Creative director was Brian Horton. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, developed by Vicarious Visions and Beenox, published by Activision. Ghost of Tsushima, developed by Sucker Punch, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, game directed by Nate Fox and Jason Connell. Final Fantasy VII Remake, developed and published by Square Enix, directed by Tetsuya Nomura, Naoki Hamaguchi, and Motomu Toriyama. The Last of Us Part 2, developed by Naughty Dog, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, game directed by Neil Druckmann and Hallie Gross. So you mentioned you don't want to play a game where there's a pandemic and that it's not like our world out there. And of course, The Last of Us Part 2 was such a massive success financially. I know that it's not everybody's favorite cup of tea, but it was so dire and awful and harrowing. And I mean, I was like, I made a whole freaking video. I've never done that. I made like a, 25-minute video on why I think it's a masterpiece. It's honestly, I think it's the video that I'm proudest of. because I put it all together alone, and I was just sitting here tinkering, hunched over my computer, trying to kind of create what this game meant to me, and it shook me. But coming up to it, I was like, how the hell am I going to be in the mood to play this? Like, the real world is so frightening, and I want to go and be totally terrified in a video game. It just didn't feel like... I almost felt like Sony should not have done it before, like not released it then, like held on to it.
Yeah.
But then the game completely took my breath away. But let's dive into these PlayStation experiences. Did you get a chance to play Ghost of Tsushima?
Just to tell you my pick for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
I want to tell you this. I don't know if this makes sense to you.
Yes.
My brain goes with Last of Us 2.
Yeah,
but my heart is with Ghost of Tsushima
for
Game of the Year this year.
Well, we sent out a poll on the community page of the channel, and we had 490 votes, and it's 39% for Ghost of Tsushima, 26% for Last of Us Part 2.
Ghost of Tsushima might have not been the most masterfully written piece. It might have not been, the most, polished in every detail, like, games like Last of Us are.
Yeah.
But it was a game that reminded us why we love video games so much. It was just, it felt snappy. It was engaging. I almost like to connect Ghost of Tsushima to like the first time that I played Shenmue on the Dreamcast. It was just one of those games that, Shenmue had this funny voice acting, and maybe not everything was perfect, but you were so just instilled in the world and just so amazed of like, oh my God, this is what I could do in this game. And it just captured you. And Ghost of Tsushima was one of those titles that I honestly took my sweet time with, because I wanted to explore every little, crooked, like little, house and do every piece of side mission. And that doesn't happen to be, today, because there are so many games to be engaged in and so many experiences out there. But the fact that Ghost of Tsushima really made me do everything, including the side missions.
And Sucker Punch has done 2 massive upgrades to the game since then, with multiplayer and with it running at 60 frames per second on PlayStation 5.
And they're great. The multiplayer was not an afterthought. You know what I mean? It was thought out. It was fleshed out. Yeah, we have to give a huge shout out to Sucker Punch for really making this game.
I do wish that it had come out before Last of Us, because I'll tell you my story with it, and I think I talked about this in the review. Like, it came out after Last of Us Part 2. I was still shaking from my experience playing Last of Us Part 2. And then I start my Japanese adventure, and, it's not a happy time in there, but it just felt so slight compared to the heaviness and the personal qualities of The Last of Us Part 2. But then I got to a point, I've never done this before either. I got to a point in Ghost of Tsushima where I did this 15-minute scramble for my life and survived this onslaught and got all the bandits and all the bad guys chasing after me. And I totaled everybody in the camp, and then I just uploaded the whole video to the channel. It's like, this is why I love this game. And I'm not great at it at that point, because I'm still not great at it, but I was early in the game, but it was the switch that flipped. And Ghost, it has a great story and great acting and great, production, but it's all about the gameplay. It's so freeing and fun, and the combat and all this stuff, like, actually stronger than what the Assassin's team has been able to put together on a series that they've iterated on many times, which is amazing. And it's an open world, authentic feeling Japanese love fest that the Japanese publishers are all pissed that an American company made it. It's because it just feels so authentic.
Good. Yeah, I mean, props. Let's give a thank you to Shohei Yoshida, by the way, for encouraging Sucker Punch to make this game, because they were hesitant. Sucker Punch was like, we're an American company. We don't know if we could make an authentic Japanese experience. But look what they created. It's gone to the point where I believe the Tsushima Tourism Board is using this game as advertisement.
True?
That's I've read an article
that's amazing,
because they did such a great job with like the beauty and really showing the island. It's something that the whole team should be absolutely proud of, and it's one of those games that I will play.
Yeah, well, let's add to this trifecta, because the other massive jewel in the crown that Sony has this year is Spider-Man Miles Morales. which is also exceptional. I've played it twice. I'm on my third playthrough of the game right now because they just dropped ray tracing in the 60 frames per second mode. It's candy. It's so fun to play. It's so fun to analyze all the video sequences and the story stuff and the the combat and scrub past the recording that you have of all the amazing animations that Miles can do, and it's heartfelt and the music is amazing, and it's just it's just sheer joy. And I've been wanting to say this. I've been biting my tongue. I didn't tweet it. I didn't talk about it anywhere. But I think what Sony has done this year with The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Miles Morales rivals or exceeds what Nintendo did with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey in 2017 when they launched the Switch. This is not something that publishers can do on a regular basis. You can't have years like this. But Miles, Last of Us, and Ghost of Tsushima, all published by Sony, all sort of heavy emphasis on single-player storytelling, impeccable mechanics, state-of-the-art kind of fidelity and experience. As a TV producer, these are the products, these are the properties that I would point to any broadcast executive and say, this is what video games are capable of. And Sony published all three of those in a year, which is unbelievable. It's impossible. Just like what Nintendo did with Breath and Mario Odyssey. Who the hell could have thought that would have been within one calendar year? Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Sony was in it for the marathon, right? I think they invested in these developers early on, and some of them were put into a bubble but now are really flourishing into their own. I mean, we saw that with Guerrilla. We're seeing that now with Sucker Punch.
Totally.
And they have the big guns. I think Sony is the one publisher where they've just got all the bullets right now. And it's really interesting right now. Obviously, we'll talk about Microsoft, but I think Microsoft is clearly trying to catch up. And they're getting there now. I think Microsoft is going to show us a lot of interesting competition in the next 5 years. I think, and it's going to be a very exciting time for all of us because I think throughout this competition we're the winners at the end. And we do have to give Sony a lot of credit for also having faith in the single player experience, because when the world was going full multiplayer, 2009, 2010, which was, I think, a little bit of a dark time, Sony was very adamant about keeping these single player experiences.
How much do you think that has to do with the other silos that they have? They have movie studios, they sell television sets.
That's a great point.
And now we have an Uncharted movie that's coming, and presumably, and Last of Us TV show, presumably that's the scale that they're thinking of, is that these interactive stories will become multi-transmedia properties that will be important to other people if they endeavor to craft them well. And they have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is what gets an emotional response out of us, Vic, right? Like, we'll always have fun and there'll always be great multiplayer experiences and they should always be around. But it's the story, driven experiences. Like, Last of Us 2 being one of our nominees was a game that it took a part of me away after the credits rolled.
Yes.
And it was a game that I didn't want to go back to right away because I was like, I'm done with this for now. This was really emotionally difficult. But I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a positive way. The fact that a game can inflict that much emotion from me is a good thing.
Yeah. And without, rehashing all the spoilery stuff on it. But, kudos again to the heavily loved and much referenced Final Fantasy VII Remake and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, both exceptional PlayStation games. Amazing on there. But I think even though we're going to talk a little bit more about this, it's time to give EP's winner, and it is The Last of Us Part 2. And I know that a lot of folks still bitter about the game. The Neil Druckmann interview that I did and the review, and I got a lot of thumbs down. A lot of people just cannot believe that people adore this game. But I think it's an out-and-out masterpiece, and I think it also is the blueprint for what the next cycle of game. It felt next gen when we got it on our PlayStation 4 Pros. It was like, why are they releasing the PlayStation 5? Look at this thing.
I mean, if a game took so much of, like, if it brought such an emotional response from people, I almost don't know if Neil Druckmann feels like he did his job in a sense, right?
Yeah.
They got us really attached to certain characters, and they really kind of spun us the other way. And, you know, I wasn't a fan of it at first, but when I really experienced the whole title, you know, I totally understand why it is the game of the year for PlayStation. I feel like this time we went with my brain and not my heart, Vic, because my heart is still with Ghost of Tsushima, but objectively, just the care and the thought into every detail for Last of Us 2, that is the definition of a AAA experience.
You know, there's a parallel with the incredible movie Logan, right? And you can almost feel like Logan borrowed a little bit from The Last of Us, but
it definitely did.
Logan, when you look at that film, it kind of it took apart the whole superhero genre, and it reinterpreted it as a completely different type of experience. And in some ways, The Last of Us Part 2 has done that with gaming and the way that we think about video games. You know, it's not just a thumb experience. It's not a Twitch experience. It is definitely something that manipulates you and has been crafted with foresight and a real intention to, zag when you're thinking it's going to zig.
Yes.
And that was part of the marketing. But also, as I discovered as I talked with Neil earlier this year, it was like, why bother doing that? You know, why make a sequel if we're going to do the same kinds of things that we did in the first game? Why not have stakes that will ripple through the whole fan base, you know? And that's and yes, you know, I mean, that's gutsy, and kudos to Sony to say, okay, do what you're going to do. And I'm trying not to spoil it for people that haven't played it.
We're really beating around the bush here.
It's an amazing game, and I think it's going to be compared to for a long time. And good luck to Naughty Dog to go back into that world.
I know.
You know, there's going to be a lot of skepticism that they're going to be able to pull something off like that. I mean, they made an Empire Strikes Back in a way, right?
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It was very, very special game, and kudos to that team. I can't even imagine the hours and the care and the love that was put into crafting a world and an experience like that. And again, the fact that something like that can provoke so much emotion from us, whether you hate it or love it, I think kind of proves that they might have done their job right, especially with the first game and just the whole world building aspect of it.
Totally. So. Yeah. Behr, it is always a treat to have you here, my friend. I'm going to be reaching out to you again soon. I think that we should make this a regular thing because I love chatting with you. You're such a smart dude with great insight on this
Smart
business.
For an 18-year-old,
Yeah, you're well beyond your years, my friend. And the beard's coming in pretty good, too.
Yeah, it's my COVID. It's my depression beard.
Well, you rock, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Tomorrow it is part 3 of the Rocket and Raygun Awards. We are getting into Best Xbox Game, Best Indie Game, and the Best Family Game. My co-host tomorrow is going to be Jose Sanchez Foobs.
Woo!
So please come back for that.
Jose.
We will be live again at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you dig the show, if you dig the channel, if you like friends like Behr, if you like the vids that we've been putting together, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you soon, and until then, play forever.